The Eurofighter Typhoon is routinely claimed to be the most agile fighter jet in the world, and is fast, being able to reach Mach 2. But to get there, it first has to go transonic, where it approaches the sound barrier. At that speed, its aerodynamics change rapidly, and it responds very differently to how it does at subsonic speeds. In this video, we simulated the Eurofighter at Mach 0.9 at sea level. At these conditions, certain parts of the plane break the sound barrier. We'll look at what kind of shocks are forming, how hot different regions of the plane get, how the density of the air traveling over the plane changes, and how the various surfaces of the plane perform. Just as an important note, this model is not 100% accurate because, unfortunately, the designers didn't leave its design schematics online for little Timmy to find. As such, this is just a good replica, and effort has been made to validate these results with whatever real-life data is freely available. For example, in this picture, you can see that there are shocks forming over the canopy, which if you look at this plot of the pressure over the Typhoon, we get some shocks there too. Then, around 60% back from the fuselage, another shock forms, which we also get here too. Then there's another shock just before the vertical stabilizer, which we get in the simulation too. Then there are two shocks just after the leading edge of the vertical stabilizer. In our simulation, we get one obvious one and maybe a little one just behind it. I don't know, it seems weaker. Then in the picture, there's just one after the wing's trailing edge, which we get in the simulation as well. Comparing the underside in this simulation is different to the one in the picture, where there is no stores, as opposed to in the picture there are some. But looking at the middle of the fuselage, where the engines are, at the rear there are 4 distinct shocks. In our simulation, there are definitely 3 distinct shocks, with the last 2 occurring further back. That could be because of the different underbody, but also because we don't know the exact speed of this airplane in the picture. So overall, there is good qualitative agreement between our simulation and real life, but again, I'm not saying that this is 100% accurate. There are likely some inaccuracies, and the results are just there for general information. And we've seen that the shocks are forming quite well at least. For those interested, this simulation was done with OpenFOAM, and if you want to learn OpenFOAM, then take our course here. Now, as you can see, the Typhoon has a different design to an F-22 or an F-35 jet. Most notably, it has canards, these little flaps at the front of the plane, and it has no tail flaps. The reason for these canards is that they are control surfaces that the plane can use to pitch, so how much it tilts forward or backward. And its canards are significantly further forward than other jets like the Rafale and the Gripen. And having them so much further forward than its counterparts means that they are more effective at controlling the plane's pitch, so you can also make them smaller and still be able to control the plane. That smaller size reduces the negative aerodynamic effects of them. So how do they affect the flow? In this plane, we see the air velocity over them. It ranges from 0 meters per second in blue to 330 meters per second in red. The air hitting the canard subsequently travels downstream from there. The flow accelerates quite a lot, and this plot with the surface pressure over the canard shows a distinct shock forming over it, where the pressure changes very crisply in a line. We also have this orbit showing where sonic flow is occurring over the plane in blue. The more sonic flow there is, the more obvious the blue is. One important point to note is that these canards can rotate completely. That's a very distinct function compared to other control surfaces. For example, on regular airliners with tails, or even wings, only the rear portion of the surface can move up or down. But the reason why the entire canard can rotate is because the shockwave forming. You can see that the shock forms about halfway down that canard, and actually, when the transonic pioneers back in the 40s were trying to break the sound barrier, they found that when these shocks form over a control surface like this, anything behind the shock becomes ineffective. They would lose control of the plane. So a typical flap moving up or down wouldn't be effective in changing the lift produced by that canard. Instead, the entire surface can rotate so that even when a shock wave forms, this surface can still control how much lift is being produced, which means that the canard continues to function at transonic speeds and higher, and allows the pilot to maintain control of the plane. In addition to giving the pilot proper control of the plane, the rotating canard can then direct where the flow goes afterwards. Here, in this very neutral position, the canard directs the flow over the top of the wing. And that's weird in this particular case because if we look at the pressure plot, we can see that there is much lower pressure over the top of the canard than the bottom. That means that it's producing lift. Typically, that would make the flow after the canard angled down. But here, the delta wing has been placed along a slightly lower line than the canard to catch this flow and make it go over the top of the wing still. So the canard and wing have been developed very closely together, and the canard is used to control what flow the wing region is seeing near the fuselage. Now, I also wanted to see how the air density changes because you rarely get to see this kind of information. The freestream air density is 1.2 kilos per meter cubed, but over the canard, it drops. Values under 1 kilo are seen before it rises behind the canard and actually to a higher value than the freestream flow. That change in density is also going to change the lift the canard produces because the lift is proportional to the density of the air flowing over it. So as the density drops, so does the lift produced. We also plotted the temperature over the canard, and because of this shockwave and air compression and expansion, the temperature changes around 20 degrees Kelvin along the canard. But at this speed, Mach 0.9, it doesn't go above normal temperatures, so there's no danger of any parts burning. Which, by the way, the Eurofighter is 70% carbon fiber composites. Let's now move on to the nose because that is where we first see shocks. This video shows the pressure in the cut plane and the temperature over the jet's surface. The color bars are quite similar, but we chose these because they show the quantities more accurately, but they are in fact corresponding to different quantities. So just make a note of that. The nose is quite pointy, but not as pointy as the early transonic planes, which feature a needle trying to pierce the shockwave. Here we do get really high pressure over the nose, and we seem to get 3 very small shocks forming over it. The temperature changes are also minimal here, like the canards, so that's good. In this plot, we can see the velocity in the plane and the body again colored in the temperature. And interestingly, as the flow approaches the canopy, it slows down quite a lot. That comes with increased pressure over that face, so the canopy needs to be stronger because of that additional pressure on it. That then makes the flow over the canopy even more interesting because the shocks we see over it are actually expansion waves. They occur because the slower flow at the start travels over the canopy's curvature and accelerates, much like you get on a wing. The flow accelerates so much that it goes supersonic again. And that's why we also see all these little lines of different pressures. The interesting thing is that the canopy on most fighter jets is quite bubbly, and that's largely for visibility. However, the Eurofighter's canopy isn't as bubbly as most Russian and Chinese 4th and 5th generation fighters. So those canopies are likely creating even more severe expansion waves, and from this velocity plot, you can see that the flow is the fastest over the canopy than really anywhere else on the plot. What that means is that the plane's critical Mach number, the Mach number it needs to travel at to first get sonic flow over it, is determined mainly by the canopy. In other words, the more prominent the canopy is, the sooner you will get sonic flow over the plane and the sooner you will get higher drag. So the canopy design is one of the major limiting factors in the plane's performance, where a better design means you can go faster before getting the spike in drag from breaking the sound barrier over the plane. That may not be so important for supersonic speeds, but when subsonic, it makes a large difference to performance because you can accelerate quicker. Looking at the air density, it drops like crazy, with the lowest values seen in this slice. Let's now move to the engines because there are some really cool things happening. So there's this rectangular duct opening with this plate on top. The dual opening is dual because each side feeds one engine. The Eurofighter has 2 engines. But the flat plate on top is there to slice away the boundary layer forming over the plane. So when the flow travels over the plane, it slows, and there is this thin layer of slow flow compared to the freestream flow. If the engines were to ingest that, it could lead to flame out, so the engines stop working. At the very least, ingesting this slower flow makes the engines perform worse. So this plane divides the good flow from the bad flow. The good flow is allowed to go into the inlet still, while the bad flow isn't, and it actually hits the wedge and then travels over either side of it and directly underneath the canopy and over the top of the wing and hugging the fuselage. Looking from underneath, we see the surface pressures, and in front of the wedge, we get really high pressure because That boundary layer flow hitting the wedge is being redirected a lot, and that is creating a lot of high pressure upstream. That also tells us that at this speed, there is no shock here, because if there were a shock, the pressure here wouldn't rise as it does because there would be no upstream effect feeding back. Then into the inlet, we still don't see any shocks, and that right there is probably the most impressive part of the plane, because it's incredibly hard to design an inlet at transonic and supersonic speeds that doesn't create shock waves. And it's so important not to produce shock waves here, because they could then be ingested by the engine, and that would screw up the compressor and then the rest of the engine too. Underneath the inlet, so the outside surface, we do get shocks here, but that's not a big deal because it's relatively unimportant here. We also get higher pressure at the front of the inlet because the engine has some resistance to it. That pushes back on the air coming in and the pressure rises. The density also rises because of that. Moving to the underside of the plane's wing, first of all, this is a delta wing, and the Eurofighter has a very large one, and even a quite plain looking one too. It kind of looks like a Lego triangle piece. But that very large area gives it a wing loading of only about 310 kilos per square meter. That is really good, and even better than the already good F-22, which is closer to 370, and the Chengdu J-20, which is around 340 kilos. The Typhoon's lower wing loading is partly responsible for the Typhoon's agility. Now at this speed, and without any stores underneath, just the structures to hold them, a bunch of shock systems form. There's one that follows the leading edge, then pretty much anywhere where there's a pointy surface, there are smaller shocks. For this particular design, it can't be helped because that was one of the major differences between the 4th gen fighters like this and the 5th gen fighters like the F-35. The 4th gen jets had their stores completely exposed, which led to much higher drag and shocks to form. For the 5th gen jets, a major effort was made to house the stores inside the wings, thereby reducing the drag and the shocks produced. But here, we get a very clear idea as to why 5th gen jets were made to house stores. Keeping them and the supporting struts out in the open just creates shocks everywhere. Looking at the temperature, there aren't really any major temperature features, except perhaps behind each store structure where the temperature rises around 40 degrees Kelvin, so about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Looking at the top of the wing now, because there is a delta wing, we might expect to see vortices coming over the leading edge and vortex lift to be produced, but here we don't. For example, with this cut plane, there's no sign of the flow rolling up over the leading edge into vortices. That's because the wings are just pitched too flat for the air to do that. In order for the vortices to form and the associated vortex lift, the wing's leading edge needs to be pitched up more. And actually here, the fact that we don't get vortices and vortex lift is really a good thing, because vortex lift is only needed at angles where the flow is likely to separate without it, and at lower angles, regular lift is more efficient anyway. So this plane is producing more efficient lift at this very low angle of attack. And the leading edge is really designed to produce vortex lift at higher angles, because you can see just how sharp it is at the front. The top surface droops down to meet the bottom surface instead of the other way around. That slight rounding over the top of the leading edge helps the flow stay attached at lower angles of attack, like here. And I'm actually really impressed with just how little the wing disturbs the flow. There's almost no curvature to the streamlines over the wing. The wake is also very minimal. We do, however, get a lot of shocks, and because the top surface is relatively smooth, these shocks can become large because there's no interference from other geometries forcing the air to bend around them too. As such, the shocks are quite well behaved. The temperature over the top of the wing is fairly uneventful, with just minor changes where the shocks are. Let's move to the tail now, because the vertical stabilizer of this plane is very different to most other good jets currently in commission. If you look at the F-22, F-35, Sukhoi 57, and the Chengdu J-20, they all feature twin vertical stabilizers. They're also canted at an angle. The Typhoon's single vertical stabilizer is just straight up. These differences in vertical stabilizers marks another difference between 4th gen jets like the Typhoon and 5th gen jets. The 5th gen jets went for two smaller vertical stabilizers because that reduces the plane's radar footprint, so they're harder to detect, and that makes the plane more stealthy. That was another major trademark of the 5th gen jets, stealth. The large single upright vertical stabilizer of the Typhoon isn't very good for stealth because it greatly increases the radar cross-section, but just having the vertical stabilizer upright meant that the plane's inertial coupling is lower. What that means is that when you yaw the plane, the pitch and even roll isn't affected as much because the tail's control surface only acts about the yaw axis. The canted vertical stabilizers have higher inertial coupling, which means that they're harder to fly. However, with better electronics, that's not a problem for the newer F-22 and F-35. One aerodynamic downside of the single vertical stabilizer is that at some angles of pitch and roll, it can be hidden by the plane itself, which reduces how much fresh flow is hitting it. That reduces how effective the vertical stabilizer is at controlling the plane. For this design, two major shocks form over the vertical stabilizer, one just at the leading edge and one at the hinge of the rudder. Again, this simulation isn't 100% accurate, and I'm not sure if a shock really forms at this hinge. I mean, it makes sense given the disturbance to the flow, but that would really be bad for control. So it's kind of logical that it does occur here, but it's bad. So that is the aerodynamics of this amazing jet. Peace out, amigos.